Welcome back to Dropped In. I am so excited to be here today with you and to share my very special guest, Sue Rhue, with you all today. Sue, how are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'll answer that question in a second, but I first want to say that it feels really good to be on this side of the microphone right now because it's rare for me to be a guest. So I just feel very honored that you invited me onto your show. And
Mm.
how am I doing? I am doing okay. I am feeling good inside my body and just stepping forward each and every moment of every day and um, trying to
Mm.
stay grounded in the process. That's how I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful answer. And I totally get that. Before we drop in, I'm going to share Sue's bio with you today. So I met Sue a few years ago. I was on your podcast with Marsha. Everybody Holds a Story. I think that was probably 2-ish years ago.
Mm.
And I absolutely loved our conversation and I love the work that you do. And so here is your professional bio. So Sue Rhue is an entrepreneur who holds many gifts and skills. After stepping away from her 14-year career as a massage therapist, Sue has fallen in love with supporting clients through their creative pursuits. Through podcasting, collaborative books, online businesses, or group spaces, she helps guide her clients from ideas and concepts to projects launched into the world. Sue is building a boutique agency for creatives. In that agency, she provides podcast editing for already existing shows, the guidance to create a podcast, a supportive workspace that includes a true mastermind for her members, and multiple book projects open for people who are looking to self-publish for the first time. Her evolution, expansion, and growth within the online space has exceeded even her own expectations, and she's just getting started. When she is not working, Sue enjoys golfing with her family and focusing on healthy practices and cooking. Welcome, Sue. We have so many commonalities, and I'm just, again, so grateful to have you here and to share you with our community. So
Thank you.
before we really get dropped in, I would just love to ask you a few questions. So because I am retired from nursing, how was it for you to transition from being an RMT into this world online and into podcasting and to writing books and like holding space for others to co-author with you? How was that for you?
Yeah, I love that we have share that in common. It's been not so easy, but getting easier at this point. Even when I revamped my bio for you and another show, it was like, yeah, I have evolved and changed a lot. I didn't leave my beloved myofascial release career behind intentionally. It just happened that way with how the world's just like shifted a few years ago. And during that time, I had started my own podcast because I wanted to teach the world about fascia. It's still out there if anyone wants to go to that show. It's called Love Your Cells. That was my first baby. And that's where I learned everything about podcasting. So I was doing both at the same time. And then when I was not by choice forced to shut down for a little bit, it was just that opportunity for me to step into my new skills. And I just fell in love with podcasting, which I know you and I could probably go off on the process behind the scenes and the creating and putting episodes together and making them sound beautiful. And so now It's my favorite job. I get to be home, which is nice. Before, like you as a nurse, we're away from the home and working very long hours with people, like really closely, energetically. And so I think, I turned 40 this year or in December. So I just feel like that chapter of my life um, is in the past. The skill that I have will always be in my hands. So there's not, I don't feel like I couldn't ever pick it up again because I can. But for right now, I really enjoy, our daughter's 10 going on 11. So I really enjoy being home, being able to work from my laptop. And, I'm I'm just in this new stage of life where working on clients back to back to back is just not for me anymore. So it's
Hmm.
finally feeling good. Even as you read that bio, it still feels new, even though I've been
Hmm.
transitioned for a couple years now. It's still fresh, but it's feeling better and better every day. And so yeah, I think I answered your question.
You totally did. I love it. I love it. Yeah, it definitely is a transition. And it's definitely, it takes some time to integrate, if you will, and to kind of step into this new role. And to tie back into your book and podcast, like everybody holds a story. I absolutely love that concept. I am a firm believer also that our bodies hold the wisdom, in which will set us free, and it also holds so many stories. So, what inspired you to get into that space? And I'll ask you another question once we're finished there.
Yeah, good question. I love telling this story because our mutual friend Marcia, who's been on your show, is the co-host with me for Everybody Holds a Story and Collaborative Books. And her and I met beginning of 2020 in real life, but we had sort of been friends in the virtual space before then. And um, what inspired Everybody Holds a Story was I was working on Marsha's body and my hands were embedded in her abdominal fascia as she was preparing for a really intense spine surgery, which we didn't really know at the time, but when we reflect back, we were like, oh, that all makes sense, that's how it transpired. So um, when I'm tapped in to human fascia, when I get quiet, I see colors, I hear things. It's like that transference at the cellular level. It's kind of weird. I use the word weird a lot, but it's really important that I share that piece because we're not solid beings, we're liquid and we are connected energetically. And when we're really connected at the fascial level, visions come through, ideas come through. And as my hands were in her abdomen, everybody holds a story. Everybody holds a story kept coming through my hands and into my body because Marcia has so many body stories. And that to me has always been my fascination of helping my clients is like learning their stories and sort of mapping it out like, oh, I had concussions when I was a teenager and then led to, everything is cumulative. So for Marcia, she had a lot of injuries and surgeries and stuff like that. So when it kept coming through, everybody holds a story. I couldn't not say it out loud to her. And so basically, as she's a storytelling business coach, I was like, well, this is kind of cool. Like maybe we could create something like this. And that's literally how it started. So
Oh my goodness. The downloads. Hey, I love it. And I love that you are obviously open to receiving them and also sharing them. And not only that, but executing on that. So, how powerful is that? So, so inspiring. And so, to follow up with that, before we hit play here, hit record, we were kind of speaking into some of the things that you're processing right now and, to tie it into your body and to come into the conversation around grief. Like, how is your body holding this story for you around grief, and what are you doing to support yourself to process through it?
Hmm. A lot. Like, that's the word that comes through right now. Yeah, that's a really loaded question, Megan. I'll just preface with over the last year or so, I've had two really important women in my life transition from this earth plane. And so I miss them very much. And I find myself, in these moments of I'm fine, and then I'm not. And so when you were asking what we wanted to talk about, I was like, well, what's really fresh right now is the grief that I'm navigating, that I'm sitting in the moments where I just like I can't move. I can't. This is the first, other than our show and my group space, this is the first conversation that I've had with anyone that isn't like super close in my immediate circle. And I think it's been hard for me to talk, like just in general. And I think that to me, as a podcaster, as a coach, I guess, an online coach, we talk all the time. And I'm finally I call it my grief cave, like crawling out of the grief cave, because I've just been sitting in those sad moments because I don't want to bypass them. Sitting in that uncomfortable space in my body. It feels like I'll wake up at 4 a.m. sometimes, and it'll feel like I have to run a marathon or something, because I need to shift my energy in my body. I don't obviously go and run a marathon at 4 a.m, but I've definitely stepped up my exercise game during this time, and I use that as a form of shifting my mindset, my energy. But I think too, we have to sit in the uncomfortable, the messy, the sadness, to work through it, because if we bypass it, it's going to creep up again later somewhere in my relationships. And I think it's just really important that we talk openly about that, because it's a lot of relearning or reprogramming ourselves to not just push through and say we're fine. Like, I have days where I'm not fine, and I will openly say that to whoever's around me. And I think it just gives other people permission to do the same, right? Because we aren't invincible, our feelings are real, and it's important to feel them. So that's what I've been doing.
Oh, well, first and foremost, I am so sorry for your losses, and thank you for speaking so openly and transparently. And it is so important to share this level of emotion openly and honestly, as opposed to just, society tells us to be strong and charging through and keep powering through. And that just leads to more disease, more illness, and more anxiety, more depression. So I truly honor you for, as uncomfortable as it is, to be with yourself, to be with your feelings, and to also set those boundaries of perhaps what you're willing to tolerate that day and what you're not.
Yeah. And
Yeah. I know when my dad passed away, I've always been like the strong one in the family, if you will. And, I was feeling like my dad and I were so connected, and I was feeling all the feels. And I remember everybody coming to me and just being like, be strong, be strong, be strong. And I was just like, I don't want to be fucking strong right now. Like, what does that even mean? And so I remember going to one of my grief counselors, and she really invited me to reframe what being strong is. And so I created this new idea of being strong is to allow myself to feel all the feels, to cry, to stay in bed if I need to. And it was such an empowering place to be because I was able to reframe what being strong was for me. And also it gave permission for others to do the same. And I also want to share one more thing on that is for anyone that is grieving, this is something she shared with me and I share with my clients is that 80% of your energy, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, is going towards grief. So if you find those days where you aren't able to get out of bed, or you aren't motivated to move your body, or you aren't able to go to the things that you typically just love to do, if you don't have the space or the energy or anything that inspires you, it's because 80% of your energy is actually going towards healing through grief. So it's important to share that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of energy, 80%. So
Mm-hmm.
I just as you were speaking there, thought about how grateful I am to have transitioned my business virtual, because I'll have moments where I think about having to go to a clinic when I feel this way, right? And how many years that maybe I did do that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That in hindsight, I'm so grateful that if I do choose to stay in bed and work in bed, I can. And I feel very, very fortunate to
Mm-hmm.
be able to do that. So, and not a lot of people have that option. So that's another thing. It's like if you're working 9 to 5 somewhere out there and you're struggling with the grief and the sadness, like it's really important to take those times, whether it's the morning practice or when you get home, to like, self-care, whatever that is for you. I
Mm-hmm.
think just up that game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everyone is as fortunate as I am here. So
Mm-hmm. So again, in conversation with our body, because I like our body holds the wisdom, right? So, and because you're so tapped in, dropped into your body, how has it been conveying messages to you in this process of grief? Like how have you been communicating with your body? How's your body been communicating with you?
good question. I love these questions. Thank you. You mentioned crying.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a huge supporter of crying when it feels like your body wants to cry. And so there have been many occasions where crying on the treadmill, because I live in Canada and it's freezing, but crying on the treadmill has become a form of therapy for me. And I really do feel better after, 45 minutes or an hour, even if I'm just walking and crying. Sometimes I'll run and run it out. And because when we are releasing tears from our bodies, like we're actually releasing the stress hormone. I forget what it's called. I should have written it down. But like we have to release them in our
Mm-hmm.
tears. And so that's what feels good for me. And I cry in public, like at the grocery store, if that's where it feels right. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not holding any shame around that. And, you know, uh, I have to be honest with my almost teenage daughter that like, I don't always have it together. Moms don't always have it together. And so it's kind of been beautiful um, to share this side of me with her at this age, because she
Mm-hmm.
understands. And then another thing I do is the virtual practice that I coach clients with, like tapping into our own fascia with our own hands. There's like a meditative practice that I just lay in bed, connect my hands to my abdomen, breathe very big in my belly. And you can feel your nervous system just drop within
Mm.
like 10 minutes. And I think I have a post recently, or one of my latest posts, where I was like, oh, I took my own advice because I was having one of those 4 a.m. moments of like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just feel like whatever. And then I was like, oh, well, let me just see if I can calm my own body down. And I did. I put
Mhm.
myself back to sleep and I was like, huh, yep, it works.
Imagine that.
So yeah, those are my
Oh.
two things is like connection practice, like
Mhm.
meditation, and then crying
Mhm.
whenever my body feels like crying. So
Beautiful. Yeah. Because again, it's a natural tendency to disconnect when we feel these big emotions, and it's natural like to dissociate and to, yeah,
mm,
cut it all off, right? And not feel it, not even acknowledge it. But again, I truly honor you for not only, tapping into your body and asking what it needs, but also being the embodiment of your own work that you share with your clients. Because, yeah, it's so important to be in that space. So,
yeah.
mhm.
Mm.
And the waves of emotions that come through with the grief are next level, right? I know, like, underneath grief is often anger, huge fears, huge sadness, right? So it's just like riding the waves of grief is real.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to expand on that a little bit, like the layers of grief based on what happened, right? Based on the experience.
Mm-hmm.
The death of my mother was very different than the death of my friend. And so there's varying degrees of sadness and questions, like you had said, anger and other feelings that come up. With my mom, this is a year ago, my mom passed away, but um we watched it happen, right? And so it was so sad in its own way, watching her lose function in her body. And it was just, those visuals that come through. But then, when someone dies suddenly and who's really young and had many more years that you thought you would have with them. So there's just those different experiences produce different feelings and produce different questions that go through your head. And but then again, it all boils down to just gratitude for having the time that I had with both of them in their own unique way, and knowing that in general in life, time is finite,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything else is infinite. And my love for them is infinite. And so like that'll never go away, right? Just the time that I am able to spend with them is now gone. So
Mm-hmm. Mm. So true. Oh, well, I am just sending you so much love virtually, and I hope you can receive that. And, again, thank you for speaking so openly and vulnerably, and for also, sharing some tools that might support others who are in the space of grief as well. So thank
mm,
you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
mm. Thanks for allowing me the space to share. um, I'm not one to be splashing all over the internet with what I'm going through. I actually am the opposite. I'm a 5-2 sacral generator. So you know me, I'll be like, retreat.
Hermit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that the friends that I have and the clients that I have know that about me. So they'll like send me DMs to be like, hey.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm
I'm a
here.
two as well. I get that for sure.
I knew that about you. I did. I
Hmm.
did. So yeah, I mean, what we see online on social and stuff isn't necessarily what's going on in the background. So,
Mm-mm. No, it certainly isn't. Mm. Yeah.
which
Well,
this type of topic, I think, should be shared a bit more. So I think you just inspired me to open up
I
a.
agree.
Mhm.
I agree. It's so important. And I know it can, like, it does feel foreign. And also, I think what feels really foreign is these waves of emotions that come through. Cause it's just like, you think oh, I think I'm okay. And then all of a sudden you just get hit with a memory or something that comes through that activates you or triggers you. And it's just like, nope, going back here. And then also we're going to go up here to all these big emotions. And yeah, it's real and it doesn't go away. I know for me personally, I lost my dad. It will be 6 years in July. And every year I think it's going to get better. It doesn't. And I don't mean to say that to, discourage anyone that's in this grief process, but it's, it is different. It's not as intense, but it's still there, and yeah. And now what I do is to support myself as opposed because our bodies hold on to the experiences and the events. So we're not consciously aware of what's occurring. So now July, early June, I set a reminder on my calendar. Hey, you lost your dad. Your dad was passing during this time. So I can be actually kind and compassionate with myself to not have this unrealistic expectation of what grief should look like.
I'm like busting at the seams. I'm so glad you went there because you're right. Every single year, it's like our bodies that have been holding on to that trauma, I guess we'll say, during
Mm-hmm.
that time, or like it comes back every
Mm-hmm.
year.
Mm-hmm.
And I often share with clients and people, it's like every single experience that we have gone through in these bodies and even past lives, if you really want to go
Mm-hmm.
deep there, is held in our bodies at the cellular level. So for that year anniversary of, losing a parent, for our using our example, you know we will feel that in our bodies somewhere, some way, somehow. And our logical brain is like, what's happening here? But really it's like, oh, like you said, putting a calendar reminder in there, and I have one as well. And it's to be able to uh create my schedule during that time a little bit lighter, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take a couple of days off where I would normally be working, just in case. It's like when,
Mm-hmm.
when women have periods. That's the same. I'm like, okay, well, this week I have my period now, so I'm not going to schedule a ton of things because
Mm-hmm.
I might need an extra hour or two on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Yes,
So,
totally.
but yeah, that recurring memory, like our memory is muscle memory, it's stored in our bodies. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel you on that. I feel you. And this was my first year of feeling that.
Mm.
And my dad said that to me because I didn't work that day. But my dad called, and of course we were just crying together. And he said something that really stuck with me and made a little bit of more sense. But he was like really, for all of us, my brother too, that was the worst day of our lives, right? So we have to give ourselves grace on that day or in that time span where we're reflecting and remembering and celebrating her, because without her, I wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave so much to us. And it's such a mixed bag of emotions, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
the sadness, the celebration, the gratitude. It's just, and again, it all goes back to the body, and we hold it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like flooded with shivers. If only we knew all this though, Sue, like I remember again in this piece of, I mean, I don't want to go too deep in this conversation and take us away from what we're talking about, but I spent a lot of my life disconnected from my physical body and dissociated. And so to be in that space of, oh, be strong and keep pushing forward, to think logically, like, come on, Meg, it's been 5 years now. Like, get your shit together, right? Like, no. And so now, like, I didn't have the awareness that I have now to actually like put it in my calendar. Like this event happened this. And I have other events that have occurred in my life where it was very traumatic. So now it's in my calendar. So it's like to have that grace and time and space as opposed to be like, I wasn't consciously aware. I was like, why am I going to these old patterns and behaviors? Oh, right. This was the lead up to this event. Your body keeps the score. Your body holds on to this, right? Your body holds the wisdom. So your body holds the story. So,
Yeah. And I love that you said like we weren't taught this. And I feel the exact same. And in my practice, I think that's why I started my podcast originally, because I was like, I keep saying the same thing to my clients over and over again. And which benefited me because I retained it and I, reprogrammed myself because I was never taught. I remember growing up and being made fun of for like, oh, Sue's crying again. And I would like
mm,
hold in my tears for like years. But now it's just
yep,
so funny to be like, now I'm back to where I probably was at 7, right?
yep.
Expressing and letting go of stress or whatever I was feeling then. So now what's so important and having these conversations out into the ether is also going to benefit the next generation. That was the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing for Marcia and I with these books, because
Mm,
we have big plans for the books, right? Like a children's version. We're going to have
mm,
like brain health is another one, but it is so awesome to have a 10-year-old daughter who is learning the things that I am learning now or relearning or right, so that hopefully she doesn't have to go through what we went through to that degree, right?
mm,
Like she meditates with us. She has her essential oils.
mm.
She has her little Fitbit and is very, monitoring her heart rate and her sleeping patterns and all the things. And I'm like, man, to be 11 right now in
Wow.
2023, right?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Uh,
And to have a mom who is modeling such healthy behaviors, truly, and for crying in front of her, because I know, that was a faux pas. Don't cry, don't show your emotions. And we need that. We need to see it. And so again, just, yeah, thank you for leading the way and for modeling healthy, positive behaviors.
yeah, it's not something I like woke up and decided to do. It's just happening and I can't
Hmm.
stop it, right? It's like a train that just keeps going. And I think it's important when we're children, we think, we look at our adults, our adult figures in our lives and think that they have it all together. But, I
Hmm.
think it's really important and my partner and I are both the same. Like we've never really censored her. Like we talk to her like, you know, more of an adult, I guess, than a child and share with her like things that we're going through, maybe financially, health wise, and especially emotions, So hopefully we're doing a good job
Mm.
and for her. So
Yeah. Well, it sounds like she's modeling your healthy behavior. So well
mm.
done, mama.
It's always work, right? So
Always, always a work in progress for sure.
yeah.
Well, I could be here with you all day. So, a question that I ask my guests after each episode, and you can navigate this however you choose, but for those that feel like quitting or giving in or throwing in the towel, what is a message of hope that you can give to them?
Hmm. Ooh, okay, I have a few things coming through. First is if you're feeling like throwing in the towel, maybe you're meant to in whatever it is that you're throwing the towel in on. And secondly, if you want to throw in the towel, or if you want to stop whatever it is you're doing, but you love what you're doing, um, you're allowed to stop for a day, a 2, a week, a month. But if you really love what you're doing, keep going
Mm.
because, you know, businesses take time to grow or projects take time to create. And there's so many ideas and like brilliant creations that are never created because people give up too soon or think they can't do it or have the imposter syndrome and all the things. But I'm here to tell you that if you absolutely love what you're doing, yes, you're going to have days where you want to give up, but get back up because people need what you have. The idea tapped you for for a reason. It's yours. And you know, tying it back to grief, you know, I've always been this person of like, I don't want to have any regrets. Like even when we moved into this house a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, I thought to myself, because we're never moving again, I thought to myself, like, wow, I feel like we really accomplished a lot. Like I'm happy. I don't really have many regrets because I just keep going. And, you know, if I can do it, you can do it.
Love it. Love it. Many mic drops there. Oh, thank you, Sue. Well, I will put how people can connect with you and follow you on socials and all the things and learn more about your podcast work that you do and your collaborations in books and all the things in the show notes. So thank you so much for sharing your beautiful energy, your beautiful light with us and the world. And so grateful to be connected with you.
Thank you so much, Megan, for having me on your show. It's been really amazing to watch you grow this podcast and this platform. And I know so many people on the earth are benefiting from your platform. So don't throw in the towel, okay?
No.
Maybe you can take a week off.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, until next week, my friends, we will see you on Dropped In. Thank you so much for dropping in with me today. If you loved this episode, I would be forever grateful if you rated and reviewed. And if you feel called to share it with your community on social media, please tag me so I can thank you personally. Until next time, I will see you on Dropped In.